DNVR Draft Pod. Let's go. Me and the Jakester. What a great day. We were just talking about this off air. You're ready for fall. You're ready for football.
I'm beyond ready.
How's camp making you feel on the readiness front? Is it making it feel like, okay, we're here, it's coming?
Yesterday was a great day. Yesterday I went home and I was like, man, what a life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, unbelievable.
Just get to watch ball, talk about watching ball. It's pretty special. It's pretty special. Which really, what a great way to introduce this show, because that's what we'll be doing.
I mean, the crown jewel of DNVR shows.
We've watched ball, and thus we shall talk ball right now for you. Join us one and all if you're watching on X, Twitter, whatever, and YouTube, and hop on the old Toyota chat so you too can talk ball, because we've got a fun one for you.
Yeah.
Maybe the most loaded conference to preview of all, because there were like 9 teams in the top 15 that are now all Big Ten teams.
Yep.
RIP to the Pac-12, which, wow, the ACC putting that graphic out.
The Katie Ledecky one?
Disgusting.
Wild, huh?
You can't claim Katie Ledecky, who competed in the Pac-12 her entire career at Stanford.
Yeah, ACC, why do we need this to be explained? Your like reign of Stanford starts now.
Yes.
You don't get to go back and claim Andrew Luck, John Elway, like all this stuff. That's not how it works.
We can't do that. Oh, that was such poor form. And then I realized it's probably some like, so poor bastard working in ACC headquarters who was given this social job, and it's like, hey, Brandon, you haven't tweeted anything for 5 days. He's like, shit, what am I going to tweet? Like, oh, Katie Ledecky, she's a Stanford alum. Let's get it in.
Yeah, how does that conversation go in the ACC offices?
I don't think there was. Again, I think in a silo, this Brandon, the social guy they got, just made a poor call, It was like, oh, this will get some traction. More traction than he ever would have dreamed of.
Not all attention is good attention.
Reply number 3 on that tweet is the Cal Bears.
Yeah, the greatest play in ACC
history, which was a phenomenal roast.
Yeah,
a just
awesome.
roast, a roast that was needed. And also we get to talk about this cornerback class, which of course, Travis Hunter, there's some local interest. Finding that guy opposite PS2 is definitely going to be something we'll be watching the Broncos' entire season. See how Riley Moss, Damari Mathis, the rest of those guys can show up. But that could be, a prime position of focus for the Broncos. And this is a loaded class.
Yeah.
With a lot of Big Ten talent.
Now, yes.
Yeah, now. So, yeah, we're going to get into all of that, and let's start with those cornerbacks and this loaded class. You want to start with Travis Hunter? You want to get into some Will Johnson? What route do you want to go here?
Yeah, let's talk some Travis real quick. He was playing slot corner during spring football. They're kind of moving around the whole secondary right now, so he's going to play all over. I think they're going to match up a lot this year at Colorado. So I think you're going to see Travis in great opportunities to really evaluate him. I mean, as if you need to really watch more Travis Hunter to know who he is. But you're going to get to see him against, Teteroa McMillan. You're going to get to see him against the Iowa State guys who are all Big 12. Like, you're going to get to see him in all these matchups this year. And you're going to really get, I think, a full experience of who he is on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and to me, the only question with Travis is how much will we get to see him at just corner? Will he want to stick to corner? I would have him play both ways as he does in college, but there is a limit. I don't think he can play 90 snaps. Even this season, I don't think he can play 90 snaps per game. I don't think that's the most efficient way to utilize him right now. But special talent, being coached by one of the most special talents we've ever seen at the position, and makes for a pretty unique season coming up. And obviously all eyes will be on the Buffs and Travis Hunter. He is my top prospect in the class. I just think there are so many scenarios where he develops into a really high-end star player at a premier position in the NFL. The athleticism, the instincts, the work ethic. There's just a lot of things that check off really high end.
Yeah.
And in some ways, he could break the record for highest cornerback ever taken.
No doubt.
In NFL draft history. I think that's third overall, right?
Okudah, and we had another one.
Yeah, we had
Stingley.
one recently. Yes. No, I think we're confusing.
No, Stingley went 3.
Stingley went 3?
Yeah, went.
Oh my God.
Walker,
no, I think you're right.
Walker, Hutch, Stingley.
Crazy.
With what you were saying, what is that?
I don't know. It's only a question.
On Travis, though, monitoring his play time is going to be interesting this year. They haven't really backed down on that. We'll see, but I'd imagine that C is going to be better this year. They're probably going to be winning more games late into the fourth quarter this year, and I doubt we see Travis in those situations. So I don't know if that's where he gets his rest, or if they actually,
that'd be great.
Spell him and take him off the field a bit, as much as he hates it. The thing that stood out to me the most about him just over this offseason, I've heard so much about his mind for the game, how much he studies.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a true football junkie. He's in there picking Coach Livingston, the DC's mind. He's picking Pat Shurmur's mind. He's learning both sides of the ball. He's just an excellent football mind, really.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I threw that out there as part of the package, but I think it is worth unpacking just a little more.
Yeah.
A kid at his age, move schools, different levels of competition, to be as refined a route runner as he is, and have, obviously his footwork is teach technique a lot of times. His ability to just gain leverage and just float, his hips are so natural. But you see those picks last year where he's really in coverage on this guy, and until the ball is in the air, then he's able to float off his wide receiver and into another zone and have those instincts. His eyes, I remember Chris Harris Jr. in his prime would talk about eyes, and your eyes being on point. His eyes are on point.
Oh, yeah.
And then, that experience at wide receiver highlights how good his hands are, which is another rare trait. But you do see his game is really refined at this still relatively early stages of his career. We've only seen him, 2 years in college football.
Yeah, I think he's only 20.
And, wasn't even fully healthy.
Right. He's 21.
Last season, you are just scraping the surface with a lot of these guys, and yet, where his game is already, it's kind of nuts.
And his ball skills, like you said, are off the charts. They're probably the best I've ever seen, honestly. And I've never seen a player like him where, if you cut a play mid-route when the ball is in the air, and it was Travis and another player.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to tell unless you looked at the numbers or something, or you knew the players, if Travis was playing wide receiver or cornerback sometimes. He just attacks the ball the same way, no matter what side he's on.
Great point. He just will run your route for you on defense so often. And then maybe another thing that really stands out is his change of direction. He's able to sit and then react and explode like few others. So yeah, there's just some really high end stuff with Travis, which I think makes him, potentially right there with the greatest cornerback prospect I've ever evaluated. I think the highest graded guy I've ever had was Jalen Ramsey. Who I graded out so high again because he had a couple different scenarios, and I thought as a free safety had really the ability to be super duper special because corner is more of a premium position. That's where he's stuck in the NFL, and he certainly has been that. I haven't graded many other corners quite that high, and Travis has the ability to be an elite grade for me, which you can count on two hands the amount of given out of those in 10 years of evaluating draft classes.
He I think got Thorpe Award mentions yesterday, which is our honorable mention. I'm sorry, watch list. Yesterday, which is for the best defensive back in college football. He was the most versatile player in college football last year. He won the Horning Award. You can't put limits on what he can do because he's always going to surprise you.
Yeah, and we have a conversation like this, I kind of talk myself back into him being a corner. But as we've had plenty of combos on this pod, on your pod, I mean, you name it, I still have the feeling that he may be just a tad more special at wide receiver, which is just nuts.
I 100% agree, man.
Yeah, that is unprecedented territory for me, having a guy who's the highest graded prospect in a class, and he could be more highly graded at his secondary position in some ways. That's just crazy. Yeah, at least one pick six from Trav this year. Napsalot 15 says in the Toyota chat. And then, I mean, we have some big names coming back here, Jake.
Yeah.
And it starts, as I mentioned, in the Big Ten with Will Johnson out of Michigan, who had his moments against Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yep.
He is a big physical corner, and he's shown some really good like instincts and ball skills himself. If we didn't have Travis, we still would have a guy at the position who's firmly in the top 10 conversation going into this season.
Absolutely. He's probably the best player on Michigan right now. Maybe you can argue Mason Graham.
Yeah.
But
he's up there, right?
He is.
Yeah.
Will Johnson is really special, man. Incredibly clean, a technician too, and not afraid to come up and tackle, man. That's something
super
too.
Physical.
Like, he is a complete cornerback in that regard.
And big.
And big. He's got the speed, to kind of track receivers deep. He's matched up against, as you mentioned, Ohio State multiple times. He got a pick on Michael Penix in Washington in the Natty.
Right.
So he's gone up against Odunze and all these guys. I mean, another guy just extremely decorated with accolades.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's probably lost like one game his entire college career, which would have been the TCU national semifinal last year. One of those guys who, even though he's a sophomore, the tape is just like stupid. Like has looked like an upperclassman for quite some time. The physicality, his ability to play that way and be pretty twitchy, quite speedy at 6'2", 202, really stands out. Where like you could easily have a fallback plan and have him be your big slot, have him play safety. And I mean, there are plenty of people who have him as a top 2 or 3 prospect in this class, and no one's blinking an eye, right? So again, to have this cornerback group where you have 2 guys in that is pretty special and noteworthy. And yeah, the pedigree. You just cannot go wrong with the pedigree. I'm realizing that clock might be a smidge slow, so I'm going to tell you about Raising Cane's. We're going to talk a little more about the corners. There are lots more. More guys who've come back, big-time transfers, you name it, and we might have a few more thoughts on Will Johnson too. But all those thoughts brought to you by Raising Cane's, who's been offering our draft coverage the entire offseason. And they're still with us, Draft Pod, right here. In the dog days, Raising Cane's is with us, and Raising Cane's can be with you. So yeah, just remember that you can get always some craveable hand-breaded chicken fingies, nice, made to order, tender, delicious, and on top of that, they got their Texas toast. They got that slaw for you, and they got that cane sauce. Nothing like stopping at Cane's, getting yourself some nice, fresh,
chicken fingers.
Fried chicken. Yeah, what am I thinking? And yeah, just go about enjoying your days. Boy, we were really craving that on one of the draft shows. We need one around the DNVR bar. That's a massive
space
problem.
Right across. We Circle K,
man.
K, someone help.
Like Falcons Stadium, we just open up a Cane's in the bar. That would be amazing. What an idea that would be. You guys follow our draft coverage all year long. We might just be able to pull that out. I think more Travis Hunter content, and we could get there, honestly. For cooked to order, ham-breaded, battered, rather, chicken fingers, race in to Raising Cane's, turbocharge your chicken fingers and get them even faster by ordering them online at raisingcanes.com or through their mobile app. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. You know the deal. And of course, we'll be getting into it with our Big Ten betting preview. I think there's even a few early draft props. Of course, I'm talking about Bet365, the only place you can go and find DNVR custom bets year round. The only place you can go and sign up using our code DNVR365. And, it's a quick sign up, a little info to make sure it's all above board, and minimum deposit, minimum bet, $5 as soon as that bet's settled. So you can get in on some Olympics, some baseball, whatever. There's off-season soccer right now.
F1?
PIDS F1? Yeah, my guy knows F1. He's been killing it.
Yes, sir.
As soon as that's settled, bang, 150 in bonus bets for you to play with and get in on all these futures. Get in on some, it's Nuggets Avs redemption season. It's we coming season for the Buffs.
Yes,
It's all lining up. It's Bo Nix prop season. You know the deal. And Bet365 has you covered. In fact, speaking of Bo Nix, I think you can even bet on who will be the Broncos starter next season. I mean,
nice.
It's just this endless. They have so many bets. I love the app, and I love working with them. They're all in on us. We're all in on them, and you love that. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay. Moving on from the top two guys, superstars. In some ways, maybe the biggest name is Denzel Burke, who I have in the headline.
Yep.
Denzel Burke, though, of Ohio State, very Ohio State corner.
Yeah.
Just a man corner. And I'm not saying like he's a man, he's 40. Man coverage, okay? Right? Man coverage. You could trust him on an island, twitched up to death, lower center of gravity. Just that classic smaller 5'11" man corner.
Yep.
Who's a little jitterbug and you can send out there and do his thing. He's 6'1", so he seems small to me, but he's actually he plays smaller than he looks because he's got more length.
Yeah.
I think he would have been a top 50 pick or at least in the mix had he declared this year. Ohio State did a phenomenal job of bringing so many guys back. On the defensive side, I probably have Tacario Davis out of Arizona ranked higher. And I mean, wow, Tacario Davis, first off, light in the pants, a classic scouting criticism.
Yes.
Just needs to put a little more weight. Like his legs just look so skinny.
Yeah. But he's 6'4".
He's 6'4". And if he's not 6'4", he's like still 6'3".
Yes.
And he is so twitched up. He is so fast. He is so good at pre-snap giving you that space and closing that in a second because margins conversation.
Yep.
The dude's so tall, so long, pause, and then so fast and twitched up that he just closes that gap in a second. Super instinctive. He's always getting his hands in the mix. Honestly, maybe a little too handsy at the end of a route, but that's okay. I'd rather overly competitive and fine-tuning that than having to teach you competitiveness. And I thought it was huge for the Wildcats to retain him despite the changes they went through. Of course, they keep him, their quarterback, and T-Mac at wide receiver. So they should still be lined up to have a really nice season next year. And I think this kid could be a star, and him and Travis Hunter could have some amazing battles in the Big 12.
Yep. They're going to go face off against each other. He had a great season last year. Tacario Davis did. 15 passes defense, only had one interception, but with the 15 passes defense, that's enough ball production for me to feel fine. He's kind of in that, like, almost like that Seattle mold at cornerback.
Yes.
Very tall, works very well in zone, can be physical. But you do worry about, maybe man coverage not the best, maybe long speed not the best, stuff like that. So he's a very talented player, though, and he's in the conversation to go first round for sure.
Perfect cover three kind of guy. You're right. He reminded me a bit of an Ahkello Witherspoon. Though, honestly, I think he's got a little more physicality and compete to him. So what does twitched up mean? Devin Braxton asks. So the ability to change direction, very quickly, just be a twitchy athlete, like hard to stay in front of. And with corners, that's particularly impressive and important. And, like the ability to go from your back pedal and instantly turn in a second and run after guys. He's really good at that. And with those longer limbed, longer cornerbacks, longer athletes, that's harder to do, but he stands out in his ability to do it. And then there's Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, go see Marvin Harrison Jr.'s stats against Notre Dame last year. 3 for 32, worst game he had all year. I mean, there was a couple of stinkers, Indiana and Rutgers, but it's right up there. And Benjamin Morrison's tape is really good. Probably the shortest of the corners we've talked so far, checks in at just about 6 foot, but low center of gravity, has a really good build, some physicality to him. And he'll like just be in your back pocket the entire game.
Yep.
And physical, kind of like Will Johnson. He's not going to shy away from going in and tackling. And I mean, that makes for 5 first-round candidates at the very least, I think.
No, you're spot on, man. Very quick, very athletic, nice, technique, just flipping his hips, stuff like that. Maybe a little small, I guess, if you want to find something to complain about.
Yep.
But last year had 3 picks, had 10 passes defensed. Again, great ball production. So this is why he's in the conversation right here. Notre Dame's going to be very, very good defensively this season, and
That's
it's partly because of him.
Yep, that's the other part. I think the Irish could have a good year, and he could really be part of that and capitalize on that showcase. It's so weird not seeing any Bama guys.
I know.
On this list.
It's really
seems odd. It really is a new era. And then, of course, Denzel Burke, who I think could have a really big year for the Buckeyes. And Jordan Hancock's going to play opposite him.
Yep.
Hancock's got some hype, too. Jason Marshall Jr. out of Florida with the Gators. He's another guy who's up there. And then Jabbar Muhammad, who, if I'm not mistaken, is a transfer from Washington to Oregon. Do I have that right?
Yep. He had an outrageous season last year, I think.
He did. And there was actually some hype, and I'm kind of surprised he didn't declare. But, we've alluded to this in years past. It does feel like for a second, it was so insane, the amount of top 50 type talents that were coming out of college football into the NFL at wide receiver. And we were like, my God, the gap is just going to open up to where all these wide receivers are superstars.
Yeah.
You have to be an absolute superstar to even make it on the field and get targets in the NFL wide receiver. And how are you even going to have enough cornerbacks in the world to cover all these guys?
Yep.
The last few classes, we have really kind of course corrected and seen a lot more superstar corners as well, a lot more depth at the position. And I think this class is a prime example. I mean, you have some true college football stars, including Jabbar Muhammad, who I know you were getting ready to talk about a little more.
Yeah, I mean, we had that top 5 that we talked about going from Travis all the way down to Denzel Burke or Takario Davis, however you rank them. And Jabbar Muhammad's one of the biggest candidates to break into that upper tier. He's a little small.
Yes.
Yes. I see him listed at 5'10", 175. I don't know how accurate that is.
Super small.
But
he gives big Washington corner vibes.
Oh, he's the quintessential Washington cornerback.
Yes.
Slightly small, but just a technician, maybe not the most athletic, but just always in position.
Right.
Great ball skills.
Total dog.
Yeah. Inside, outside,
exactly.
Everything.
Yes. You're talking yourself into even if he can't play outside, he's going to be one of the best slot corners in the class. Yes, he is that 100%. And in some ways, I feel the same way about Jason Marshall Jr. as the quintessential Gators corner. It's all the talent in the world, but
right. Yeah.
Raw
he lets
product.
some guys go over the top a lot. Yeah,
Exactly. Compete level and stuff like that's a big question. So no, man, it's a stacked class. And even if the Broncos, are drafting in the top 20 and don't find their guy, or that's, too rich to go corner, you're still going to find plenty of options later on in the draft. So yeah, it's just a fun group and a fun group to watch with all these top teams. Like every week when we're previewing Arizona's big matchup, Colorado's big matchup, you know, you name it, Ohio State, Michigan, on down the list, Notre Dame, you're going to be bringing these guys up of like, yeah, okay. And watch Benjamin Morrison against this top wide receiver or whatever, because everyone has top wide receivers as well, which is always fun. Let's take a quick break, tell you about DNVR events. We have so much going on, even though it's the dog days. Whoo-wee. It's really kind of a packed event schedule these days. So you start with a little golf outing. We've got a fun golf outing, and we still have some spots that you can join in on, which is nice. Usually these fill up pretty quickly, but you still got some available. It'll be at Legacy Ridge Golf Club in Westminster on August 16th. So coming up, it's another 4-man scramble. I think we'll have a couple teams out there. It's brought to you by Toyota and Shady Rays. There's all sorts of, those tournaments are awesome and the prices are really good, which is why they fill out, and you get all sorts of like great stuff. You're going to get range balls prior, 18 holes with a cart, games throughout the golf course, goodie bags and limited edition ball marker, great giveaways, including prizes for winning teams, and then lunch, drinks, and post-round party at Legacy Ridge. Like, what a deal. Go to our website, DNVR.com/events to check that out. We've got a Rockies takeover on Todd Helt night on August 17th against the Padres. Again, this is a great deal where you get pregame at DNVR, the DNVR bus, party bus, 2 Coors, which is amazing. Just that, the savings on parking and the convenience is worth it. Tickets in section 205. And then the first 30,000 fans get a Todd Helton bobblehead celebrating the Todd father, which is amazing. And then, Buffs tailgates have just started and gone online. Those are going to fill up so quick. And the things I've heard about our new lot are incredible. Broncos tailgate season is starting, and the first preseason games is like coming right up in 2 weeks. We are still
at
at
the Hall of Fame game tonight. Do you realize that?
Yeah, insane. I kind of don't want to tell Kate the Bears are playing so I can watch more Olympics or more Dragons. Frankly, I'm so behind. I need a full screen for the Hall of Fame game. And the Hall of Fame game used to be like an epic. It's like, oh wow, fall has begun.
Yeah.
Like the Hall of Fame game's being played.
And then you watch it for 30 minutes and you go, yeah, I'm good.
Then the Broncos were in it. It was kind of like, wow, this is trash.
Yeah.
This
is fun.
Trash.
Where you at in Dragons?
I'm an episode and 10 minutes on the second to last episode behind.
Okay.
So, the memes online, it seems like there's some dragon conflict incoming.
Get ready.
So,
Get ready.
Yeah, and we're recruiting outsiders. It's wow, crazy.
It's mayhem right now.
Really crazy. Kate cares so much about these CGI dragons. The humans she could not care less about. I'm almost disturbed by it. But I respect the hell out of it. Broncos tailgates, though, this first preseason one, the price is insane, and we're going to have the homies at Pete's. So all this, I'm sure I'm missing a few from the read, but we're not going to go for 5 minutes on this. TheDNVR.com/events, all sorts of great stuff. And that's just the appetizer before the real fun begins in the fall and beyond. Did you have any more corners you wanted to get into? Do you have any corner hot takes?
Hot takes. I don't know if I have any hot takes yet. I'll throw out some names, though, for you.
Please.
You mentioned Jordan Hancock opposite of Denzel Burke.
Yeah.
Ohio State, again, they're going to be really good this year. They're loaded on the perimeter positions. Kobe Bryant at Kansas. They kind of had to battle to keep him due to NIL and stuff. Maybe were even rumors that he could come to Colorado. He ends up going back, staying there. Another guy, 6 foot and pretty aggressive. I think he needs to have a better season than last year to really elevate himself, but he's a name to watch out for.
Well, and the Jayhawks are set up to, make some noise.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That all depends on Jalen Daniels' health.
No doubt.
What else do we got? Denver Harris is a 5-star cornerback who's at UTSA now. He's kind of bounced around, gotten in trouble.
Where was he before?
A&M, then LSU, then now he's at UTSA.
Dang.
I think.
Okay, so he could have a big year.
Yeah, he's had to deal with a lot of maturity stuff.
Yeah.
But very, very talented. So we'll see if he's able to pick it up.
Love that. Right now on Bet365, odds to be the first overall pick. Travis Hunter plus 3,000. I pride myself in knowing when there's value on the board. That's pretty nice value on the board.
He's the only unicorn in this class.
He is, and we just had 6 quarterbacks drafted in the top 12 picks.
Yeah.
So the appetite for quarterback first overall. Now, there's always appetite, and I think Shador and Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers are probably being a little underrated right now, and will have more juice as the season progresses. But like plus 1,000, plus 1,200, top 5 odds would be reasonable. Plus 3,000, leaving value on the board.
I trust you. You've been making money on the
I'm
NFL
placing that
on
right now.
all drafts, actually.
I'm placing that right now. Will Johnson also plus 3,000. I guess first overall, I mean, as a corner and corner only is pretty tough.
Yeah.
That's where I think Travis is different because he's a unicorn, as you mentioned.
He is. You mentioned it when we started. He has the chance to be the highest drafted corner ever.
Yeah. I mean, which also would make, like, if there was a time in NFL history where that would happen, it's now.
Yeah.
Where we are more
7-on-7
perimeter.
era.
Yeah, exactly. We're more perimeter oriented. You know, a bunch of candy ass coaches like Ryan Day.
Crying Ryan.
Ryan, he's the best. Man, I still can't believe he went after Lou Holtz in a game where he literally ran a reverse on 4th and inches. Like, holy shit.
Insane stuff.
Run it up the gut if you're upset that Lou Holtz said you're a candy ass. Don't run the most candy ass play ever. Can't have it both ways, crying.
Maybe he was just a prophet. He foresaw that NCAA 25 meta and realized that jet sweep is just OP. And that's why.
Right. That could be. Okay. It's the conference of cornerbacks. And we have, it's our last Power 4 conference to preview. Is this possible, Jake?
Did we do the SEC?
We did the SEC last week. Yeah.
Well, then yeah.
You must have missed that.
That's
we
it.
did
We're
the
ready.
Big 12 while I was gone.
Yep.
You guys did the ACC.
Yep.
I'm kind of like over the ACC. I'm ready to treat them as a non-power conference.
They're teetering on the edge.
This Cal Stanford stuff's really rubbed me the wrong way.
Well, let's see if Florida State and Clemson join the Big 12 then and really shake things up.
Be legendary. I would love that. It would make sense. Okay. Ohio State has the highest odds, or shortest odds, I should say, plus 150 to win the conference.
Yep.
Guys like Urban Meyer, and maybe it was Lou Holtz, have said after observing practice, this is maybe the most talented team they've ever seen. And I mean, there was no team that had more guys from my 2024 draft big board who, when the deadline to declare for the draft was over, got switched over to the 2025 big board. Burke, the edge rusher, Jack Sawyer, is it? JT Tuamalu. I mean, so just getting those 3 guys on defense is crazy. The backfield of Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, who, of course, has taken a life of his own because now he's like, his legend has grown as a superstar on the video game now.
Yep.
Donovan Jackson on the offensive line is the guy we've talked about a few different times in our All-American previews and what have you. And, of course, the big transfer in Will Howard from Kansas State at quarterback. And I think that's where really all of this hinges.
That's exactly where it all hinges.
Is Will Howard.
So, I mean, you go back to last year, McCord was just not good enough. I think that was pretty evident early on. You can go back to the Notre Dame game where they had troubles moving the football.
Yeah.
And then you go all the way up to the Michigan game where they were just outclassed because McCarthy had that edge over him, and Michigan was just able to really key in on Will Howard's McCord's weaknesses. So we'll see if Will Howard can get the ball to those guys. I mean, he's got the best backfield in the country. He's going to have an easy job of just turning around and handing the ball off. And they're going to win a lot of games just because of that. Defensively, they're pretty stacked. But can he attack downfield? You know, can he get Emeka Egbuka to have one of those years like he had 2 years ago? Or do we see those guys kind of drift away in terms of their production and in the NFL draft landscape a little bit like Emeka Egbuka did last year? So
yeah, and does it become more of a run-first offense with those running backs and the dual threat versatility of
and
Will
Chip
Howard?
Kelly at offensive coordinator now too. He's going to run the hell out of the football.
Right. Yeah, so that changes a lot of things. And Oregon, crazy enough, has the second shortest odds at plus 200. Again, a big high-profile transfer quarterback and Dylan Gabriel going from Oklahoma to Oregon, and you know, some other big transfers they've had. What are your feelings on Oregon, a program you've you know pretty well?
I think this is the team that's going to win the conference, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. I think they're loaded. They attacked the portal really hard. They got some of the best players out of the portal. They've really rebuilt all over the field. They got 5 stars at wide receiver. They're probably going to be even better at wide receiver than they were last year. Again, it all hinges on Dylan Gabriel. I mean, what Bo Nix did last year was championship caliber, I think, for Oregon. But he wasn't able to match Penix in those 2 matchups against Washington. They're obviously dropping out of the picture. So it's probably, you know, can he go toe-to-toe with Ohio State? Can he outplay Will Howard in that game?
Right.
So they're the best team coming in from the Pac-12 into the Big Ten easily. Stacked with talent.
Yeah, and Washington went through so much, and USC, obviously, we got to see.
I just think they're the best team in the Big Ten. They have the least questions, in my opinion.
Wow. I love that. Because then it's Penn State, Drew Aller. I mean, this feels like the most classic Penn State under James Franklin's season ever.
Drew Aller, or Aller, whatever his name is, he hasn't really impressed me. Once.
No.
He's coming in as a former 5-star. I guess when you look at the stats, he was okay. I mean,
yeah, no, he was.
He's yet to complete 60% of his passes in a season. He had a 25-2 touchdown to interception ratio. He ran the ball 74 times for 200-some yards. He's just got to be more dynamic. He's got to be a better playmaker.
100%.
So, yeah, I guess it's really the questions about quarterbacks for really the top 4 or 5 teams in this conference.
Absolutely, because what's Michigan doing at quarterback?
It's going to be Alex Orji. He came in last year in spurts, but really only ran the ball for them. So he's kind of an unknown in terms of attacking downfield and passing. They have a wide receiver I really like in Samaj Morgan. They've got Donovan Edwards, of course, so they'll have one of the best running backs, and offensive line will be good. But
defense brings back some studs.
They're going to be better on defense than on offense, and it's probably because of Alex Orji, the questions surrounding him. But, I mean, he was a highly touted recruit. He's very athletic. So you're going to see, I think, more quarterback runs from Michigan this year. But I don't know if they have as dynamic of an arm and quarterback as J.J. McCarthy and Alex Orji.
They probably don't. But how much of that defense and leaning into that running game and just kind of bowling teams the way they have.
That was last year.
And leaning into that identity, could that be enough when you do have teams like Penn State, Ohio State, less so Oregon, who I do think Dan Lanning has leaned into that identity and has that in his back pocket a little more. But I do think there's a bit of a like old school football that...
I mean, it's still got Harbaugh's fingerprints all over it.
And that's the thing, right? I always think year 2 is the year where like the new identity and culture needs to be established. I always think you're running a bit on those old fumes from last year in that first year, and I think that could give them a little extra juice too.
They have one of the best 1-2 punches at defensive tackle in the country, and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant.
Yeah.
That's going to carry them. And then
they're going to be impossible to run on. They're going to be impossible to throw on in some ways. And then, it's going to be really hard to stop their running game.
Big matchup. This is out of conference, but that week 2 matchup against Texas, I think, is going to set the tone for Michigan season.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's in Ann Arbor,
That
too.
is a massive, massive, massive matchup. Okay, let's talk about playoff teams. Anyone out of that top 4 who you think could be a playoff candidate for you out of the Big Ten?
I think they're going to have multiple.
Yeah.
I think that this is a conference that could have 4, maybe even 5 teams if, maybe Michigan and Alex Orji is, able to attack downfield and they have a dynamic passing game. Maybe USC actually, starts to live up to what they have been told that they are, or Iowa. I mean, playing for the Hawkeyes, you just got to play good defense and don't turn the ball over, and you're going to win football games.
I think the divisions being broken up may stop Iowa's reign of
that was their big
advantage.
Wins. Yeah.
And I mean, Washington.
How do you feel about that?
There's a huge unknown. It's a huge unknown, but that's Washington for you. I mean, the 2 seasons Washington did make the playoffs, they kind of came out of nowhere for you too.
For sure. Especially that first year with Jake Browning.
Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, last year was pretty out of nowhere as well, man.
Mm-hmm.
And then, USC. I mean, I've always been a Lincoln Riley believer. I think for the last 5 years, in a lot of ways, I thought he was he was top of the totem pole, as far as the coaches who are defining this sport and moving it forward. He was right there. This is a massive year for him.
It's almost like a make or break year for him, honestly.
And the conference change really accelerates that quite a bit.
Yeah, not a great time for that. I mean, Miller Moss, he had a great bowl game in terms of stats. I want to see more. I'm not ready to buy fully in on him yet. But they're going to have talent at wide receiver. They got Zachariah Branch coming back. Lincoln Riley's openly challenged him.
Zachariah Branch is out of this world.
Lincoln Riley's publicly challenged him to be a more well-rounded wide receiver because he was a great special teams threat, like a reverse guy last year. Yeah. And if he can make that jump, I think that elevates USC's offense. It comes all the way back to the defense, though, as it has the last 3 or 4 years under Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, and finally a change at coordinator, so maybe that makes some difference. But yeah, it's hard to believe. And then you have Nebraska. People, some people are excited about Nebraska.
Get that out of here, man.
What's UCLA going to do? I mean, wow. That media day appearance from Deshaun Foster was
brutal. He's owning it, though. Did you see the "We're in LA" shirts?
He's wearing the shirts. So I mean, we've got that going for us. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, Washington's intriguing though. They got Will Rogers at quarterback. He did some things really well under Mike Leach at Mississippi State, and then it all kind of fell apart last year for him.
Yeah. Will Rogers is intriguing.
So we'll see if he's still got that top tier ability, because he did it in the SEC in that kind of air raid system, and that's what Jed Fish liked to run. Is he a Mike Leach disciple, Jed Fish?
He feels like it, but I'm not sure if he is. If I set it at 4.5 Big Ten teams to make the playoffs, do you take the under?
Yeah.
Under 4.5.
I think it's 4.
You think it's 4? Okay. And it's those top 4 we have on the odds here.
Yes.
Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State.
I mean, I'm not so sold on Penn State. I do think that there's room for like a wild card USC or Washington, maybe Iowa to come up there. But I think it's the SEC where you see like 5 teams come from. Big Ten gets 4. You fill in the conference title winners, the G5, and then you have room for maybe 1 at large.
Right. Which might just be Notre Dame.
It could be another Big Ten team too.
Or it could be another Big Ten team. Okay, let's do some corner bets.
All right.
How many go in the top 5?
Ooh.
If I set that at 1.5, you taking the over or the under?
I'm just going to go with the under just on historical reference.
Yeah. Top 5's tough. If I make a top 10, though?
Over. Yeah. 2.
I think so. Yeah, I think Will Johnson and Travis Hunter. And you have enough wiggle room where, like, one of those guys, whatever, it's the draft. It happens every year. You've got enough from the next group of guys to jump in. If I set it at 2.5 for the top 20, do you take over or under?
Over.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this is a year where if you see defenders, it's going to be the edges and the cornerbacks.
Yep.
And there's some talent at the interior defensive line, but that's really where we're going to focus our defensive attention.
Definitely.
this season, which, should make for a fun year.
Yeah, it's going to be. So we talked about this a bit on this show, too, that, in this last draft, the 2024 draft, it was, you'll have to remind me, his first 16 picks were offense or something like that?
Yeah. Yes, the first 15. Yeah.
It's going to go pretty opposite. I think it's really just going to be quarterbacks, and, some of these wide receivers and offensive tackle here and there. I don't think we're going to see a outrageous run. If anything, I think it'll be majority defensive players that get drafted in the first round this year, just from what I've seen so far.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting with the quarterbacks, but then those offensive tackles, I think, will go pretty high. And wide receiver, we'll see. I mean, all have them rated pretty highly. LB3 and T-Mac and Igbuka. We'll see how the years go. Isaiah Bond. There's always a lot of pressure on those guys. It could be a year where the wide receivers are highly rated, but the NFL lets them drop out of the top 20, kind of like 2 years ago with Jordan Addison, and JSN, and that wide receiver class. I could see it going that way.
I don't think maybe you have a first-round interior lineman. Maybe if Colston Loveland just leads Michigan's passing attack, you have a first-round tight end. I don't think Ollie Gordon is really in first-round conversation unless he somehow tops last year.
Yeah, I kind of think it's more Judkins.
Exactly. So, quarterback, maybe I think you have three that it will go. Maybe you have someone like a Jackson Dart who enters the conversation. But defensively, man, defensive tackle, you have Mason Graham. You have your guy, Deion Walker at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Kenneth Grant in Michigan as well. And then on the edge, absolutely stacked at the edge.
Yeah, there's so much talent.
Linebacker, you could have Harold Perkins for sure be a first-round player. We just talked about 5 cornerbacks in the conversation. So I do think it'll be dominated by defense in the first round this upcoming season.
I could see it, especially when we go down the list. It's later on. It's especially from 15 to 30.
Yes.
I think you could see a ton of guys. Ethan Burke just doesn't get talked about enough, but the junior edge rusher out of Texas, 6'6", 260. He always flashes when I watch the Longhorns. I think he's going to have a massive year. I need to make sure he's on my board, and he's also rated highly. Okay, Jake, this was a true pleasure. Check out all of Jake's stuff, Buffs, training camp. He's got you covered. Leave us a thumbs up on the way out. Check out all of Henry's stuff, Justin's stuff. They didn't make it because they're doing a bunch of camp stuff for Broncos and Rams. Check out all that. Thank you to those who joined us in the Toyota chat. And thank you to producer Alyssa behind the sticks. You guys have a good one. We'll be back next week. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.